Brenda.
And I'm Christy. We're two friends from high school who are connecting and reconnecting over music and memories.
Welcome to Normal Bias Podcast.
We're glad you're here.
Go ahead. Hey, Normal Biasers. It's Brenda and Christy, and we're back for a special guest is on our Friday episode, and Christy's going to introduce you guys.
You make it sound like an after-school special tonight on a very special Normal Bias Podcast. It's really this morning. But you guys, this is David Baldner. If you don't know him, the two of you who listen were not Mustangs, but all of our Encounters friends know him. He was my group around me, our 7th grade Encounters teacher. But you're way more than that. I told him tonight is the first time I've ever actually called him David. He's all these years still Mr. Baldner to me, so I'm working on it. And we have some weird overlap in our lives. But the reason I wanted to talk to you, one, is because I love your sense of humor, and because we have some interesting overlap. But you are, for me, I think for a lot of people when they think of teachers, they think of someone who goes into a classroom and stays there forever. And I feel like you have really explored the whole education career. You've done several things. You've done things outside of education. Like you really have such a full resume. And I'm fascinated by kind of the path that you've taken.
Does that mean I was probably never really good at anything I ever did, so I just kept moving around?
No, that actually, so that the whole jack of all trades, master of none has been disproven. Do you know that? Yeah, and I
listened to Michael Lewis, or was it Malcolm Gladwell? Do you listen to his podcast?
So Casey, our 17-year-old, passes him on to me. So we've had his books around for years. I picked up some of it, but that may be where I heard it. Did you hear something like that with him?
Well, no, it was interesting because I studied at U of H Clear Lake. That's where I got my master's, and I was studying ed leadership, and so that became kind of a theme of things that I read and studied. And so Gladwell was talking, and you always hear the phrase Peter Principle, but the guy that wrote the actual book that coined that phrase his last name was Peter. And he talked about the fact that you will eventually meet your match in your career, that you will always rise to the level where you finally find out the level that you're actually incompetent at.
Oh, that's interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah. So it's called the Peter Principle, but you said that, and that's why I joked about it, saying maybe I
don't know. Okay, so I don't even know where to start with you. I tell you what, David, you don't have to introduce yourself, but will you tell us a little bit about where you're from and about your family, your career? Just talk for a minute. We'll just listen.
Well, I'm from North Shore. I guess if you've got all the two people who know that, so they'll know where that is. I don't have to. That's Northeast Houston over there by the Ship Channel. I grew up just off Uvalde, not far from that area, and went through the system. I went through Cimarron, North Shore Junior High at that time, and then North Shore Senior High School, graduated 78. Went to Texas Lutheran. That's where I met Cindy, and we got married shortly after going to college together in 1983. Graduated in 82 and taught the first year Cunningham opened, 1982. And
that's so cool.
Then got involved in Encounters and then became an administrator and moved up to central office when Shirley was there, Shirley Neely, and went to the Regional Service Center in Houston for 2 years. And then I went to the Regional Service Center up here with a guy named Kyle Wargo. You remember it was, Brenda, when did you go to Cunningham?
That's what I was just trying to think. I was there probably 84, 85, 86, 87.
Yeah, Kyle was there in 82 and 83, the 82 school year and the 83, 84 school year. And he had graduated from Baylor, and he was a first-year teacher the same year I was. And he ran track at Baylor, and the track coach is a guy named Clyde Hart, who had a brother-in-law named Gerald Cobb.
Mr. Cobb.
So
That's familiar.
Kyle was graduating, and so he was about 6 weeks out of graduating, and Clyde looked at him and said, "What are you going to do when you graduate?" And Kyle said, "Oh, I hadn't planned anything." He says, "You going to teach?" And he said, "Well, I could." He said, "Well, hang on." So he called Dr. Cobb, as I call him. I don't call him Gerald. I think he's still alive. I think Dr. Cobb is still alive. Anyway, he called him and said, "I got a guy that can teach science." And so Kyle came to Cunningham. I came to Cunningham. We were very good friends at Cunningham. And so in 2000, he was looking for somebody up here to become an administrator on his staff at Region 17. And that's how I ended up here. Cindy and I made a couple of trips. Lubbock, they always invite people in the spring when it's not windy, because it's just like drop dead gorgeous, you know. And hopefully you don't come on a weekend when there's a windstorm up here. We did. It was just beautiful. We said, "Oh yeah, we could live here. This is just gorgeous." So.
Doesn't it snow? Am I making that up, or is that it snows, right?
We've had some really heavy snows. I actually bought a 4-wheel drive pickup just to be able to get through those when they occur. They don't occur that often, but we've had like 10, 12 inches of snow.
Wow.
Which
Crazy.
up here with the wind becomes like 4 or 5 feet deep in some sections. So that's what else did I did. I've got 2 kids. Cindy retired from teaching. So we both made a career of education, and our 2 children, Sarah and Philip, are twins. They were born.
Oh, they're twins?
Yeah, they were born in 1992. We adopted. So we, went through that, and now they're grown. In fact, Cindy is actually responding to my text saying that was Sarah that was trying to call me. So
if you need to call her, we can take a break. It'd be okay.
No, that's all right. That's all right. I'll get a chance to talk to him.
So David, were your parents educators?
No, I'm one of those. My mother was born in a town called Normandy, which is just outside of Madisonville. And so she graduated from high school out of Normandy High School, and she attended a small teacher college called Sam Houston Teacher College for a year. She was a Bearcat, but she didn't finish there. She just went there for a year. And my dad is from Minnesota.
Oh, wow.
So he moved down to Houston, but he was a graduate of high school, and that was that entire family line. My cousins and I are the first group to graduate from college.
Wow, that's awesome.
Now, do you have siblings? I don't know that.
No, I'm an only child. So have at it. There you go. There's your first opportunity at jokes. He's an only child. Well, of course you are. We didn't realize that, but it sure explains ... So
Oh my gosh.
Tempting.
You have some big feelings about that.
Oh, it's just, we joke because we've got some friends up here, and Cindy and I are good friends with the guy that worked at the architectural firm that I worked with when I left education, one of them. And he's married to a twin. And so when we get together, we say, "Yeah, boy, let's start down the jokes, You guys ever get your wives confused?" No, we don't, but you go through the list of jokes. And then if you tell somebody you're an only child, they'll start saying, "Well, that sure makes a lot of sense because," and so giving you the chance. There it was. It was just all yours to have that.
It's such low hanging fruit. I'm sure there will be something we can poke fun at.
Yeah.
But, so this is actually, I have to say, so in Galena Park, the way back in my day, a million years ago, Encounters was a pull-out program up until 8th grade. Like we left school for a day, a week, and went and did something. And so like 4th grade was, she's Dr. McComb now. She's amazing. And then Miss Young was all Greek mythology. And then Lady Barbara with the Renaissance. And then in 7th grade, we didn't leave campus. It was like, what? So we just went out to a portable, and this guy was out there, and he was our teacher. And I wish
a little bit about what North Shore Middle School thought of the Encounters program to put us in the portable next to the beginning band class.
Oh, joy.
Because I was great friends with Ellie Cleveland. I started as a music major in college, and I played clarinet. And Ellie was a very good friend of mine. She's the one that got me the job at the Astrodome. You may see me refer to working at the Astrodome occasionally on Facebook, but
I did not know that.
Yeah, she worked out there. She went to U of H in the 60s, and so when they opened the Astrodome, her parents worked there, and so she was a cashier at one of the stands. And so she worked in what we call the warehouse, which is where I worked when I worked out there. And she's a very good friend of mine, so she would come in the portable and take beginning woodwinds and teach and that kind of stuff, and we'd be right next door to them. And I still remember we would be in the middle of something and they would start doing what beginning woodwinds do, because I was a beginning woodwind player, and it was just god awful. You know, it's like somebody shot a group of ducks and they're laying there wounded trying to make it through life, you know. It is just like, oh God, here come the clarinets. And
So, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say for our listener, or two listeners out there, that Encounters was the GT program, the Gifted and Talented at North Shore in Galena Park ISD. I don't know if we mentioned that part, but so I just
Well,
wanted to share that.
just as a reference, since you brought up Jill McComb, she was one of my first mentors, as was Barbara Hunt, and I still keep up with them. But Jill was the one who pioneered the GT program.
She's something.
It became a joke, but she told me the story one day. I was not a big GT advocate. They didn't find that out until they brought me into the program. And there's a long story to that.
Good hire.
My first 2 years of teaching, I didn't really buy into the idea of the GT program. I did once I got involved with it. I really began to see the beauty of the program, but it was funny because she said that she was brushing her teeth one day, and it dawned on her that children who were truly gifted were not being served. That became an ongoing joke because she would always say something about she got the idea while she was brushing her teeth, and so we said, "Boy, just don't put a toothbrush in her mouth." But she approached Larry Parkerson, the principal of Cimarron, and she had learned that the state would give an amount per child if you started the GT program. So she made this proposal to him, and it's a long, drawn-out story, but the program started because of her, and then they pushed it a year at a time, and so then Mary Hunt became a teacher, and then Barbara Hunt became a teacher, and then Becky James became a teacher, and they kind of grew it from that. And
well, it was. I mean, as a GT kid, I thought it was a really good model, and I feel like, you know, you guys afforded us an opportunity. We really learned differently when we were with you guys, and we got to experience different things. And you know, in the 4th and 5th grade years especially, we got to, I feel like Miss Young always like took us places in her car, and like as a grown-up I'm like, surely we didn't, but I think we did.
School van. Yeah.
No, it was a station wagon.
Well, that might have been Mary.
So I'm like,
are you friends with her son Keith on Facebook?
No, but Brenda graduated with Meredith.
Okay.
So yeah, so like it's all like we're all interwoven. So David,
Mary still subs. She subs in Galena Park. I guess last year I saw her. She came to our school and subbed. So I still see her.
One of the 90-something-year-old ladies at our church used to work for Mr. Young, the attorney.
Yeah. So. We wrote our first wills, Ken.
See? All of these, like, everything is just so interwoven. So David, I have always, all these years, I have felt sorry for you. I cannot remember. I think that Brett was probably in my Encounters group still in 7th grade.
Brett Ronstadt. Yeah, I was shocked when he passed away.
Oh my gosh.
He and I had shared messages maybe about 2 months before he died, and he was expressing regret and remorse. And I was like, you know, you sign on to that when you become a teacher. You realize you're going to have kids that are going to push buttons. And I always thought he was really a very endearing student.
He was one of the first kids I met when I came to, I guess I was in 2nd grade and they put me in 3rd grade, and he was one of the first kids that I met, and we had a love-hate relationship from day one. Facebook, which is how you and I have kept up, has like, it really, like, we just became really good friends. And he, you know, sometimes I didn't like some of the things that he said, but I always knew that he was there. And he, just to see, like, and Alfred Martinez and all of the, like, I was trying to remember who was actually in my 7th grade class. But all I remember is I just feel like we just gave you heck all the time. And you have such a dry wit, which is one of the things that I love about you as an adult. And even as a child, as a 12-year-old, I appreciated your sarcasm and your humor, because I feel like you were really the first adult that gave it back to us. I feel like a lot of people just sort of tolerated us, but you fit with us. You were definitely the boss of us, but you messed with us, and you joked with us, and if one of us was a turkey, you let us know. And I don't remember like the theme that year, what we learned. I know like what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I knew like that stuff. But what I remember about that year is you having to deal with us and just us being such a mess and testing you. So that's why in my head, I was like, I wonder if he was a new teacher. But
Yeah, I was newish. It wasn't my first year, but it was certainly early in my career. And I actually, I will tell you, there was a book that Don Hooper got us called Mastery. Have you read Mastery?
no, is that one of the ones about multiple intelligences though?
No, it's by a guy named George Leonard, and it talks about it's in the leadership vein. It's a great book. It's a quick read. It's got big pictures, big words. I mean, like big print, so you can finish it in probably a 3-hour sitting.
Uh-huh. That's where
But
it
it talks about kind of the mastery curve, and I've read this in other places. But it's about 5 years before you actually begin to master what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a curve, and so you go up the curve, and then you start to plateau, and that's what he talks about, is learning how to work in the plateaus, because there are more plateaus in life than there are highs and lows. And so in order to achieve mastery, you've really got to learn how to deal with the plateaus. So and so you can think of it in sports, you can think of it in vocation, like teaching or things like that. But anyway, I think by about the 4th year, I actually had started getting the knack of teaching. And the thing that made encounters very difficult wasn't necessarily the kids, although there was groupthink in encounters, because you guys have been together for 3 years, so you were always professionals as a group.
Oh yeah.
You fed off one another. You knew each other. You didn't even have to see each other. You knew what each other was thinking, and so I got dropped in the middle of that. And it was like, all right, what did I say that's making you guys laugh? I mean, you just you
Can't
didn't
even imagine.
so you had groupthink and that kind of stuff. But the thing that made it actually the most difficult was the fact that you said you don't remember the theme. It was present and future. 7th grade was present and 8th grade was future. And when I got put into that, they said, here's your curriculum. And I said, what is it? Well, this year is present, and then 8th grade is future. And I said, and what does that mean? They said, oh, you can make of it whatever you want to. And I said, that's horrifying. I'm a 3rd-year teacher. I don't have anything to base that off of. And so it took 3 years for me to actually begin to get together stuff that I felt was actually maybe competent,
But I don't remember so what's funny is I do remember incompetent teachers in my education career, but I don't remember that about you. I think I don't know. I mean, I would love to know. I know, I see on Facebook that you interact with several of us in that same age group, but to me, it felt like you were the first adult who kind of knew what it was to be in our shoes. So I felt like you related to us in a different way. And that was something that that's something that I walked away with. And as a teacher working with students, and then as a teacher training teachers with Region 4 and writing curriculum and stuff, that you're kind of one of the building blocks in that foundation for me. And it was your interaction and your relationship with us. And it's not relationship like you're I think you remember Christy Clarkson. It was relationship. You showed a respect for us that I don't think that but you showed a respect for us. And it was something that we encountered again and again and again in high school. I can name, Mary Landry, Allison Burnett. Fabulous, Mr. Fagan, Dr. Fagan, but so many great teachers who interacted with us in a similar way. But you made an impression on our group. And you're still someone that I'm so close with a bunch of those people. We're not kids anymore, but you made an impression on us.
Yeah, I've had a chance to bridge the divide. I'm like Tully Folsom. He was in the first year I taught. He was in 6th grade, and he and I are really good friends now. He came up and spent some time with us. His daughter's going to Texas Tech, and so there's him, and there's Jeff Burnett, who went through Cunningham, and he's a good friend of mine. We went out to visit he and his wife at his property down in kind of the Uvalde area. So yeah, I hear people say that, and I have just a foggy memory of that time in my life at best. I think I know what is accurate, and So I'll talk to someone like you, and they'll say, "Hey, you remember when you blog?" I'm like, "No, not really. Sorry, you know."
But I mean, I think
I remember you. I remember who you are. I remember you were always a very cheerful student and always somebody who was, I thought, very optimistic, very positive, and things like that. But I can remember faces. I'll run into a student and remember them because of their face, may not remember their name. And that's actually a story. I went to rent a car down in Houston. I was working at the service center up here. We had something down in Houston, and I flew into Hobby, and I got out and went into the rental car place, and there was a student that I had taught the first year named Andre Ballard. That was the first year I taught, and he was standing behind the counter. And I said, "You're Andre Ballard, aren't you?" He said, "Yeah." And I said, "I'm David Ballner." And he just looked at me with like, "Yeah, well, there's 1,500 people in here, and I've got to get the cars rented." And I said, "No, I taught you in 6th grade." He goes, "You did?" And I said, "Yeah." And I started laughing. I said, "Boy, that must have been how good I was to have this kind of impression. You didn't even remember who I was." But of course, then I had a head full of hair and a mustache, and I was just, this. So.
it happens.
And he was, but he was a good kid. And so anyway, I mean, it's.
I bet you run into people all over the place. So so Brenda, for our senior year, Holly Landry at the time,
And you mentioned her mother. I always looked at her mother as just, she and I did summer school a few years together.
Uh-huh.
She was the librarian at North Shore, I believe.
I don't know. She was our English.
I know that, didn't she? Wasn't she an English teacher?
Mm-hmm.
We had her our freshman year, and then we had her our freshman. Then we had Miss Burnett. We may have had her junior and senior year, but I know I had her
the librarian, and she may have been the librarian in summer school. But anyway, she and I always worked together, and I always really liked her. She was a very, very good person to work with.
And she's still, you guys, like, even as, like, not that you're really truly retired, but she's, she's very active in her church. She's still, they've actually, she and her husband have been out to visit us a couple of times out here in Brenham.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I think our 20th high school reunion, I think I spent most of the time talking to Mrs. Landry. So, because I'm such a fun person.
Yeah. Well, Holly married a guy that I didn't go to high school with. He went to high school with a friend of mine who's older than me.
James Morgan. Yeah, he's older than us.
Yeah, he's older than me. I think he's a 75 grad, so.
James,
yeah, he's friends with a guy named Larry Harbuck, who was a 75 grad. And so Larry and James are real good friends, and Larry and I were good friends because we only grew up about 2 streets apart from one another. And so even though we weren't the same age, we hung around with each other. And so Holly married into that. And so she'll sometimes message me with a joke that, only I will know because of James. I tell her to tell James just to shut up, just tell him to shut up, please. Because some things you just are ready to put to rest. Like I guess he told her one time there was something that happened and a friend of mine ended up getting his toenails painted. Long story, but you get the idea. And she said something about that. I said, just shut up. Don't talk about it.
I was like, okay, so that made me think about what happens in Vegas, stays in Vegas. Y'all know that they changed the Vegas slogan. I was shocked. We saw it in a commercial the other day. Did y'all see that?
No.
Totally. This is totally off subject, but now it's what happens here only happens here. I'm like, I don't know who came up with that. I mean, I'm a little bit in marketing, but yeah. So I think we need what happens in North Shore stays in North Shore, because there are a lot of choices that I made that I'm grateful that we didn't have social media. We didn't have computers in our pocket, or phones.
Yeah.
I got in plenty of trouble as it was. Not that my parents would.
There's that North Shore back in the day page on
Facebook.
There was a guy I taught with. He and I played basketball at the YMCA together, and I'm not going to give his name because when I saw the pictures, I said, anybody ever does that to me, but it was a picture of him at a party in high school.
Oh.
And I said, we didn't go to school during social media for a reason. There's no reason to start unearthing that kind of stuff now.
No.
And, we have careers and lives and families. I mean, my kids know what they need to know, but there are a lot of things that they don't need to know. And I feel your kids are adults, and I feel the same way. There's some things they just don't need to see.
Yeah, well, I posted the picture of me and Cindy at that frat party, and I'm wearing the yellow dress, so
Yeah, but
what is into my life is I'll let people see, But,
You know, I
and
so
I'm in yellow right now since no one can really see this, so I'll leave that up. I was in a yellow dress, and I'm wearing yellow right now, so I'll let y'all kind of ponder.
I like if you once you learn what color looks good on you, I think it's good that you're going with it. I will say though, I was expecting a bow tie. I'm just
I
saying.
apologize.
I told you I was going to dress down. I know that you dressed down to meet me, and I appreciate
Didn't
that.
I ask what the dress code was for this? Did I ask that question?
No, but
I
it's
didn't know what to anticipate. I didn't know what all I would be dealing with, so I studied, like I said.
so far so good. Like, yeah, I mean, I feel like you've nailed all the questions that it's me, so I talk in circles.
So, where all where all of you taught? You said you were at Harvard.
Okay. So let me tell you about our overlap. So I don't know if as a 12-year-old, again, if I would have even picked up on the fact that you were from North Shore. So I was a Cimarron kid. We moved to Houston when I started first grade. So I did first grade and third grade at Green Valley, and then we moved. And we lived on Grand Oaks and Hidden Forest. So I went to Cimarron for fourth and fifth grade, and then North Shore. And then you were our seventh grade encounters teacher. And then you moved on and you became an administrator at Cimarron, where you and I both went to elementary school. So we have a lot of friends in common from that. But when I was a senior, Holly Landry Morgan, they started Future Teachers of America. And one of the things that we did, we got to take a field trip to a school as future teachers, and we came to Cimarron. Do you know that? And I remember, and you were there, you were the principal, and you guys
I was walking around very proud of myself at that point.
You actually were, and it was the first time that I had been in the school since I had left in fifth grade. And what I remember is, being 17 at the time and walking in, and I was like, man, it's small, because when you're young, that hallway seemed to stretch forever. And
There was a guy named Ted Whitmer whose family was big at North Shore. His brother played football there, and I was in band with his sister. I think Marie was his sister. Very competitive family, very smart family. Did well, some very meager beginnings and stuff. But he was good friends with Mike Barkley, and he came in there and he said, "Now that you guys are here and I know y'all," he says, "I always wanted to set up some bowling pins halfway down the hall and start at the office and just throw them to see how far we could get it." And so we actually thought we would try that. We never did, though.
Oh,
I bet you could, though. I mean, I don't know who's principal there now. I haven't. But that was one of our overlaps. So we went there as seniors, and you guys at that time had an early childhood class. Now we call them PPCD.
Yeah.
One of your students.
Charlotte Holmes was the teacher, short red hair.
Yep. And so I was, at the time, I was trying to decide. I was thinking, I wasn't sure what I wanted to teach, if I wanted to teach, which will be a theme in my life, apparently. And I got to be in the early childhood class, and there was a 3-year-old with autism. And if I said his name, you would know him. And when we were doing something, he interacted with me. Like, he looked me in the eye and he responded to me. And she said, "He's never done that before." And I was like, that was cool. So, so I went on to college and went to Sam Houston. And then when I started teaching, your wife and I started the district opened we came back. I lived in Huntsville, came back to teach in Galena Park at Harvard when they opened it. And your wife was a first grade teacher, and I was a resource teacher for K through 3.
You're back on the job. She'd been out for 4 years with the kids. So.
Yeah. So, and it was your twins. It was their first grade year in '98, the year that we opened Harvard. And so I forget whose class they were in, but so when we opened Harvard, there were a lot more students than we were expecting. So we had to hire some teachers after that first 6 weeks. And my best friend from college came and ended up teaching first grade at Harvard. And she taught first grade at Harvard for forever with Cindy. So she would know Lynn really well. So that was like my first overlap with you, like as a big person, was when I was 17 and I decided to become a special ed teacher. And then your wife and I taught together, which I don't know how you and I never came across each other the 3 years that we taught together. Wait, when did y'all move to, when did y'all leave? When did she leave Harvard?
I think she was maybe a year. I don't know how long she was. I'd have to dust off the memory banks and talk to her. But I thought
Maybe she left before I did.
Yeah, she may have.
But that may explain if we only talked together for a little bit. So we had that, and then and then you went to Region 4. I would go to Region 4. I worked from Region 4 from 2002 to 16.
Okay, I didn't know that.
I did. I was did the training, and then I wrote some of the courses. What's that?
What did you train?
For the so for the I just went ACP program. I worked with them and then did face-to-face trainings, and then when we moved here, there was an opening in online training, and so I started doing that and stared writing.
Bob Baker's still there?
What's that?
Bob Baker's still there? I
Not,
know he was
I don't. I didn't ever work with him.
guy, and then he became kind of one of Bill McKinney's guys.
Well, Bill McKinney was there. He used to sign. Well, they used to stamp him on my paychecks. So yeah. So I did.
How are you liking this? I'm looking at you over there. You're.
Oh no, I love it. I'm good.
All this.
Brenda has a lot of stuff she's about to like. I'm trying to get our story in. So you're being really good, Brenda. I'm proud of you. So we have the overlap of Region 4 in that, and then I'm trying to think. So you are. I'm always interested when I run into you on Facebook on someone else's or someone that I know. Like we have a lot of overlap in our friends there. I'm trying to think. I feel like there was one more thing that I wanted to tell you, like something that you did that impacted me, but I should have written it down. I don't remember.
Well, that's fine.
But it's just been interesting, like for me as a grown-up, I'm trying to think. It was something about education. So I left education in 2017 was my
I
last.
remember you putting that on Facebook saying that you were going to kind of jump out there and take a risk and do something that.
Well, I did. And then that risk I gave up. So I had built up a consulting career and loved it and felt successful, and I gave it up to work with some friends on a website that was going to be an online community that never took off. So after a year, I gave up my consulting business and then basically got fired with no pay. So, and then it was, you know, how it works in education when you're a consultant. So it was too late. I got fired in June, and it was too late to apply.
The business you founded?
I wasn't a founder. They just brought me on. The founders brought me on. So, but my consulting was mine, but it was too late in the year to apply to be a consultant for the district. So I've sort of had like one of those like, well, now what? And what I had trained in websites and social media, my husband had a client who needed someone to do social media. And I was like, okay, well, I'll try it. You know, I was already doing it. And now this is the third school year I'm doing that. So I accidentally stumbled into, that's what we joke about it being my fourth career, because I was a teacher and then consultant and then worked for the website, and now I'm doing this. Yeah. So, okay, Brenda, I know you're dying, but you're being so good. I'm so proud of you.
Thanks.
So, one of the things that David and I have in common that he doesn't like to talk about is he does love to write, and you're one of my favorite things about Facebook. And I used to say the same thing about Brett. I'll bring up Brett again. But you are one of my favorite things about Facebook. And my husband, James, and David are actually friends on Facebook now. And so you guys, like, y'all have so much in common that it's kind of funny. And like even your sense of humor and stuff is the same. So you guys, like if we're ever in Lubbock, we will sit down and have a beer with you. And he would love that. But you love to write. You also love to read. You say what you think, and you mean what you say. You're just an all around, like just a solid guy. But will you tell us after, so you guys moved to Lubbock and you were at the Education Service Center out there, but then like as you took some risks too in your career. So what else have you done outside of education?
Well, I did consulting work when I retired. That was not necessarily a risk. It was just an opportunity that came up. And that's actually one of the reasons I parachuted when I did, because it just seemed like the right thing to do at the time. But there was an architectural firm in Dallas. Trying to think of their name right now. It was SHW. They did a lot of work in Galena Park. And they had decided for some reason to buy a strategic planning firm called Cambridge. And I had been working with Cambridge on the strategic plan that our service center developed. And so I had some friends that worked at Cambridge, and Scott Milder, who had been in Galena Park for just like a year and a half, had gone to SHW. And so this district needed, Del Valley outside of Austin needed somebody to come work on a strategic plan for them, and I ended up helping with that, and it opened itself up to an opportunity to become a strategic planner for Cambridge /SHW. And so I went to Kyle, who was a friend of mine, and said, this is opening itself up. And so he talked to me about my options, and he let me work from September through January, kind of, you know, closing my career out, because you can retire in January and get an extra year. So I did that, but I didn't really do a lot of work because we had hired someone else to take my place. And so I was kind of phasing my career out and picking up this new one. And I did strategic planning for maybe 3 years, which is as exciting as I see the two of you right now. I think Brenda's just about to hit the microphone and fall asleep. So, I mean, it was fun. I actually made the KC relationship started in my retirement, because one of the first districts I picked up was a district outside of Kansas City called Smithville. And I became really good friends with the people up there. That was probably, next to Texarkana, the district that took strategic planning and did what you're supposed to do with it, and really did a lot in terms of the strategic plan itself, and then the action plans that follow up, and calling me back up there to help them work through various things that they were doing. And superintendent's a season ticket holder with the Kansas City Chiefs. And in an interesting roundabout way, I was at Hobby Airport sitting at a bar and talking to a guy sitting next to me, and I said something about Smithville. He goes, "Oh, I got season tickets at the Kansas City Chiefs, sit right next to the superintendent of Smithville." I said, "Well, he's a good friend of mine." So we started talking, and
Dude.
I mean, it was a lot of fun. But Christy, as you know, consulting it's if you're going to do it right, it's a lot of work. I mean, it requires an intensity in terms of the relationship, and when you're there with the people you're consulting with, they're all your attention. You turn your cell phone off and tuck it somewhere and make good eye contact and listen and ask a lot of questions. And I mean, it was just very intense work. And I did that for about 3 years, and then SHW spun that off because they were about to go global. I didn't realize at the time that the lady that was the CEO was negotiating a deal. It's now called Stantec, so they're an international company. So they spun it off, and I stayed with Cambridge for a while and continued to do some work, but I ended up going back here to Lubbock. There's a small mom and pop firm called MWM, and so I did business development for them for a little while, and then tried a few other things. Somebody mentioned the grocery business a little earlier. I actually left all of that and thought I'd go work at United, which is a local grocery store. And I really liked the grocery business. It's a very competitive business. So for your family to be in that business says a lot about them, because grocery stores are buying each other up and doing everything they can to put the other one out of business. And it's just kind of interesting. And I did that for about a year and a half and continued to work with MWM, but that was real spotty work. That was just on an as-need basis. And then I finally said, I don't even know if I want to do education anymore. And I became a realtor.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I just love that.
Are you still a realtor now?
I'm going back tomorrow morning at 8:30. I'm driving to Keller Williams and picking back up where I left off. And I,
Hmm.
I got a I got a certification through Maxwell as a business coach. Um,
Oh,
there's a guy that's a business coach at Keller Williams that I really enjoyed talking with and working with, and so I don't know if you know this, by the way, Christy, but talking about famous people, Gary Keller, his mom taught at Green Valley, but he's the Keller in Keller Williams.
What?
okay. So his book is up there. What is his book called? The Million.
Millionaire real estate agent.
Is that it?
Is
I
it
think it's a,
What I
I,
sent it back.
the one in the red spine back there?
No, I thought I had. I gave it away. Okay. So another overlap. My sister-in-law, Amy, Dr. Hooper's daughter, who was one
Yeah,
of
she's on the
your.
team. Yeah, she and your brother are on a team, aren't they?
He is not anymore. He went back to software went back into computers, but they were, yeah, and so
Okay.
Keller Williams and loves it.
I
So
think I think
I work for
I
her.
think Don Hooper is a realtor. He's also a broker.
Yeah, that's so he got into it and then Amy got into it. And when Amy got into it, I was like, that's a lot. That's a lot of cold calls and knocking on doors. But she
yeah,
loves it. She's done great.
that's what I want to know. What is it about it that is? Yeah. How did you get in? I just want to be a realtor one day. I don't understand.
He's
My
interesting,
neighbor,
right?
my neighbor is a realtor, and he and I are very good friends. He's been here the entire time we have, so 20 years. It's like I was telling the lady that's the director of the Keller Williams. He's got a key to my house. I've got a key to his. He's got the code to our alarm. We watch each other's home to get each other's mail. He's got 3 kids. He's an adoptive parent, just like we are, and he's if you don't know Lubbock, if you look at it on a political map, it's not just red, it's deep red. I mean, it is a deeper color red. And so Barry is my neighbor. He is the epitome of conservatism. And so he's a great guy, though. We get along great. And I'm fairly conservative. I don't mean to say it like he's conservative. I'm not. But he talked to me one day and he said something about it, and I said, yeah, why not? I'll try it. And that's really the wrong attitude to go into real estate with. It's you really want to go into real estate with, I really want to conquer the world as a realtor. That's kind of how you have to think. But I enjoyed so much of what they do at Keller Williams that the atmosphere itself, I told Tara, she's the director, we were talking and I said, I felt like Kramer. Remember when Kramer went to work for the company and he didn't even work there? Like came in and out, and they ended up firing him at the end of the show. And he goes, "Well,
He was working here."
Well, that's what makes it so hard to fire you, But I said that's kind of how I felt. I was paying to go in and out of Keller Williams, but I loved everything about it. The only thing I really didn't like was the cold calls. And then when you get a buyer as a realtor, they own you, and so you take them to houses and all that kind of stuff. And it's like sometimes they'll do all that, and then they might not even buy a house, and they'll say see you, and so you put in all this time and paperwork, which I was never good at, ironically, and I was the Title IX or the Title I and Title VI director in Galena Park for a while, but I never really liked paperwork. But that is all real estate's about, is paperwork. Now, Amy, your sister-in-law, would say yes, but you leverage your time. They teach you that at Keller Williams, which means bringing in somebody to do all the paperwork for you. But I never got to the level where I had enough money to pay someone to work for me. I suppose if I'd really pushed it long enough and hard enough, I could have gotten to that level. But
maybe this time.
Yeah. The growth that they offer at Keller Williams is phenomenal, and Gary Keller is the biggest pusher behind all that. He's got a podcast that's good to listen to. And I'll have to look up the name of it, but the second season is actually the most interesting because it's where he starts talking about leadership. Anyway, I was going to say all that because
I was like, get the leadership.
Gary Keller is he's a North Shore graduate, and I know they've got this Hall of Fame, I think, over at it's called Think Like a CEO.
Okay.
Got Gary Keller there. Think Like a CEO, and his second season is outstanding. I mean, it really is good, and I listen to podcasts, so if I say it's a good podcast, some of them. Michael Lewis has got a great podcast. Malcolm Gladwell's got one, but Gary Keller's second season's great. But he has created an organization that is built on growth, and it's personal growth. It's just really about becoming the best that you can be in life, and that translates in his mind to real estate, which I think is true. And so I actually am looking forward to going back to that environment because it's a culture of growth and it promotes growth. But he's a North Shore graduate, 75 grad, and
I didn't know that. That's
yeah.
cool.
Well, they've got a Hall of Fame in Galena Park, and I looked at it, and it's mostly athletes. And I saw Joe Stevens, of all people. He and I know each other, and so I was at the Houston Golf Tournament, and he was there. We ran into each other, started talking, and I said something about that. And I said, you've got a guy that you've never tapped for that Hall of Fame that probably should be the top star in that. And his name is Gary Keller. And he went, Keller Williams, Gary Keller? I said, yeah, he didn't know that. I worked with Joe's mom at Region Force, Cheryl.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, so Joe and I graduated together. He and I grew up in Pine Trails.
Yeah.
So we were Tice Cunningham, North Shore. So yeah, I've known him since elementary school.
Yeah, they were building Pine Trails my senior year in high school. It was just roads. And,
so yeah, so I got to North Shore. I was born in Brownsville, moved to San Antonio, and then we landed in North Shore. I guess I was in third grade when I started at Tice.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been to Brownsville. I got a fraternity brother that owns a barbecue place down in Brownsville.
That's cool.
What is his name? Daryl?
Maybe it's my cousin.
Well, no, he's got an Anglo last name. I think it's Daryl. Can't think of it. He's got a barbecue place down there, and then I graduated from Texas Lutheran, which is in Seguin, just outside of San Antonio. So.
Oh, I didn't realize that's where that was.
Yeah, that's our favorite city to go to. If you see any milestone stuff we do on Facebook, it's always like, I turned 60 last year. We went to San Antonio. Our big anniversary, we went to San Antonio.
So, I just lost my train of thought. Yay. I'm special like that.
Okay, while you're thinking, so another thing, so David, I went from Harvard teaching to Cimarron. That's where I was trying to get. So I taught at Cimarron with a lot of people who had taught there when you were the principal there. So that's one of the overlaps that we have. Like whenever, like I'll see Amy Cole responding to your stuff, for a lot of the people that I taught with that mentored me, as not just as a young teacher, but as a young parent. So
you were there with Crystal Murray.
Yeah, she's the best.
Yeah.
No, she
was.
was.
Friends on Facebook. I hired her as an assistant principal.
Good.
Last year, she was. She taught with Cindy over at. Well, Mike Barkley was the principal over there. I can't even think of the name of it right
Oh,
now.
really?
No, out in Pine Trails. What's the?
Purple Sage. It was new. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a new one when we were in high school.
She taught with Cindy over there, and so she was a real go-getter, and so she came to Cimarron, and then Amy Cole. That's a funny story. I'll share that with you while Brenda's trying to recover her thought. But I
found it.
Was talking to a lady named Trish McDade, and we had a teacher who decided not to come, and it was like late in July. We were just about to start school. And I had a philosophy that if they ever came down, you can have this kind of luxury of this way of thinking in an urban school district because there are always people lined up from all the schools around there to come teach. So I always said, if you want to not teach here, I don't care where you are in the year, just let me know. And she came in, and I don't know what it was, but she just decided she didn't want to teach. And we hadn't even started in service yet. She just had cold feet, I guess. And so I said, okay. And so I was talking in front of a group of people, and Tricia said, well, I may have somebody that would come down here from New York. And I said, really? She said, yeah. I said, so give me your information. So she gave me her information, and I said, let her know I'm going to call her. And she said, okay. Well, it was Amy, but Amy was working at like a vacation resort kind of, phone person. And so I called up there, and we were laughing within 3 minutes of that phone call. So I don't even think, it was not even a good interview. If you're going to model interviews for people, it's kind of like, well, you're making me laugh and I'm making you laugh. It sounds like a good deal, but let's just make this deal. So she came down and became a teacher, and
look at her now.
Well, two of my best laughs that I remember were with her specifically, but I did an observation in her classroom, and I said, come to the office this afternoon. I always wanted to do an observation and then review that same day. That was kind of a unwritten policy of mine. We're not going to set them in a box and let you go in and sign them, see them cold. And then I'm not going to wait 4 or 5 days when the teaching is not fresh for either one of us. I always wanted to do it the same day. And so she had gone to the dentist during the day and came back, and I didn't realize it, and she had gotten her mouth numbed. And so I was walking through the observation with her, and she was just sitting there with her hand over her mouth like this. And, you know, now her face is kind of droopy because it's got Novocaine in it. And I'm looking at her, but I'm reading. Now, I am reading this, and I'm kind of going, I'm not reading, but I'm looking at her, and I'm going through the observation, and I'm thinking, oh, God, she's disappointed. Ready to break out and start crying. And so I finally said, are you okay? And she said, you know, and she's talking with a numb mouth, again, like Kramer on Seinfeld, you know. Well, I went to the dentist, and I'm trying not to drool on myself. And I just started cracking up because she had gotten some dental work done. And she was literally just trying to hold her mouth so she didn't break out and start drooling everywhere. So that was one. And then another situation, she and Trisha were coming down the hallway, and I always would stand out at the cross hall as kids were coming in and trying to just say hello to kids and, you know, catch the errant parent who was just going to go to the door and, you know, maybe drop something and say, hey, you need to take it to the office and stuff like that. And so I was standing there, and she and Trisha come by, and they're beet red, giggling like two girls in church who just did something they didn't want to get caught doing, and they walked right past me. And I just looked at them, and I always was holding coffee. And it's just something that you see that tells you that they've done something that, I want to know what happened that made them laugh like two schoolgirls in church in the back that just got caught doing something, you know. So I went up to them, and I'm trying to think of when I did, but we had a teacher there named Tammy Mizell, and we had another teacher named Sarah who had gotten married, so I don't remember her married name, but her name was Sarah. Sarah was pregnant. They were both blonde-haired. And so Trisha and Amy go into the teacher's lounge to put their lunch in the refrigerator, and there's a blonde putting her lunch in ahead of them, and they said, oh, Sarah, when are you going to have your baby? And Tammy stood up. Tammy said, well, I know I'm fat, but I'm not pregnant, you know.
Oh my gosh.
And you had to know Tammy. Tammy was one of those fragile personalities that you could make cry by going, how's your day going? You know, I mean, she'd get easily flustered, cry easily and stuff like that. And
Aw, Tammy is like
so
me.
Tammy walks by, and she's not storming, but she does walk in. And so then Amy tells me the story, and I just started cracking up. I said, oh, this is perfect. Couldn't happen to a nicer person, because then it all made sense. Tammy, you know, goes by me, and then here come Trish and Amy covering their faces, giggling, trying not to say anything. And yeah, if you say to Amy, if you just message her and say, David told me about the teacher at the refrigerator who you thought was pregnant, she'll tell you I probably need to shut up. So say, tell David he needs to shut up. But it was classic. It's just, you know, one of those things that almost a location joke, but there is some humor to it. So.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I can totally picture that happening.
Yeah.
No, what I was going to ask earlier was, like, when did you guys reconnect? I mean, obviously, I guess it was through Facebook maybe, but like, when did
you? A friend invite, because I don't have a policy to not reach out to students, but I'll see students on there, and I'll think, well, if they want me to be their friend, they need to be the one to do the invite. And it's not for any other reason other than I don't know what kind of impression I made. And I have reached out to a couple. Like, there was a student at Cimarron who ended up marrying I can't even think. Actually, one of them babysat our kids when they were little. The oldest daughter babysat, but the sister, their dad was a board member. Great family. Mother taught math out in San Jack, I think.
Oh, Chad Grant. He was my prom date. Christy
No,
Grant.
no, not Chad. I know Charles Grant and Chad. Chad was a student in Encounters, but this was
I'm trying to think who else was San Jack.
I mean, Miss Hadaway was San Jack, wasn't she?
Mom taught math. The husband was on the board. really nice guy. And then they had 2 daughters that went through Cimarron. Anyway, I had seen a post that involved the former student who was a guy and the girl, and I think they lost a child. And so I reached out and said, I'm really sorry to hear this. And all they said was, thank you for reaching out. You know, they didn't really like, oh, gee, Mr. Baldner, wow, it's so great. They didn't say anything like that. So I say that as a story because it is a sad story, but at the same time, it's just one of those that I don't know the impression the student had of me. They might have been somebody who really couldn't stand me and tolerated me. And so if I reach out and say, hey, want to be a friend on Facebook? They may say not just no, but,
Really no.
I always let it up. Just if I see a student that's active on Facebook, I'll let them be the one to reach out because I don't know what the relationship was.
That's interesting because I don't normally send friend requests, so I must have really wanted to be your friend.
Yeah, or we might have started, but anyway, I just remember Facebook was where we reconnected,
and I couldn't tell you how long so I've been on Facebook. I was actually a late adopter, which is funny because I'm like, we used to pride ourselves on being early adopters, but I didn't get into Facebook until 2010. And then
I didn't really get into it until I retired and I could speak more freely. Because the guy that I worked for, Kyle, very conscious politically, very cautious individual, smart, one of the smartest people I've ever known, plus one of the smartest people I ever worked with. But, he says that he would talk because, as you know, Christy, service centers were in the crosshairs of the legislature forever. And Kyle was one of the people who actually helped get that undone. But I say that because if you post it on Facebook, it better be just like, kids had a great day. I had a great day. Hope everyone's having a great day. Thanks. And so to me, that's just painfully dull. I thought, nah, I see no reason to have this. We didn't see any reason to have it as a service center, but we did get into social media. But I waited till I left. So 2013 is probably when I started becoming more active. And then, as you now know, I can post 4 times, 5 times in a day. So.
But you're good too. Like you don't just, because I say it's because social media is my job, but I'm lazy. Like I'll just like your posts. But you leave words. And so you're one of the few people that I will actually have an actual conversation with because it's like, I know that's how you roll, but I'm like a lazy Facebook Instagrammer. And you actually like have.
I have to be careful with what you called my endearing sense of sarcastic humor, but because on your posts, sometimes I'll just say, so what you're saying is.
And I love it. And it makes me laugh.
I think your husband's first interaction with me when we became friends was, I thought I would friend you because I wanted to know who this smart ass was that was always commenting on Christy's posts. And I thought, oh God, clearly he's friending me because now he's going to find me. It's just like, he's got an Italian last name, or at least it looks Italian. He's going to hunt me down. And
he's actually half Syrian. So probably, I don't know which one's worse. Okay. He could probably make some things happen.
Yeah. I'll be real careful now.
He likes you a lot though. So that has been fun to see.
Okay.
Him interacting with you and vice versa. I'm trying to be careful about your time. David has chili on the stove, y'all. It's Frito pie night because his wife is out of town. Now, would Cindy eat Frito pie, or is this when Cindy's gone?
That's the only reason I made chili. And what you do with leftover chili is you store it and you bring it back out and make Frito pie with it. And Cindy was very excited at that opportunity. And then, because she's going back and forth to Dallas, she hadn't had a chance. So I only heated up half of it so that there's some left when she gets back to have some.
So sweet.
Yeah, well, no, that's 37 years of marriage. That's called survival. That's not being sweet.
So you said y'all met in college. Where did she grow up?
She's from Richardson.
So that's up by Dallas. Is that right?
Yeah.
Hey, y'all. Are you still watching? Are you still listening? Oh, hey, Mom.
We're so glad that you're still with us. If you want to connect online, we're at www.normalbiaspodcast.com, or you can find us on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. And our very favorite, if we made you a mixtape, we'd put all those songs on our Spotify playlist for you.
All the things.